They made me cheat. Is that even a thing? Can your partner really push you into stepping out? Or is that just a weak excuse? Let's get into it.
Could you ever cheat on me?
Absolutely. That's why I don't make dumb decisions like talking to guys one-on-one or hanging out in like compromising situations. I'm a human being, you're a human being. And I'm sorry, babe, I don't know if this is hard for you to hear, but everybody is absolutely capable of infidelity in the right/wrong circumstances.
Oh, okay.
That's why boundaries are so important. You're never going to see me in a situation, even if people think I might be too strict. I don't care because I'm not taking that chance.
Amen.
I'm not putting myself in a position to even be close to a position to potentially fall to temptation. I'm going to keep it 100 because anyone is capable of cheating, but I will not be cheating on you.
Excellent. I love that.
I love you.
What's up, family? Welcome and welcome back. This is Dare to Discuss, and I'm your host, Thatbaldbrutha. Tonight, we're taking a look at a video of a couple that was featured on the Social Proof podcast. Shout out to David Shan and his team, where they discussed their experience in the area of infidelity and how they were able to deal with it and whether they were able to overcome it and move forward. Let's check it out.
So we've had some challenges in our relationship as well, where we had to walk through seasons of, going through what I feel like every marriage has things that challenge it, that press it. But I feel like we went through a season where, we had to figure out whether or not this was really going to work. And now in the midst of that, now is the introduction of our first child. And so my son is born. We're walking through that process of figuring out, is this, I know I said I want to be in this forever, but forever is a really long time.
So right there, he's talking about how marriages go through seasons. And I think that applies across the board for all relationships. There are going to be occasions where you're going to have to deal with more storms and headaches and drama. You want to minimize that, obviously, but you're never going to avoid it. And there are going to be occasions where you're going to be maybe pushed to the limit where you think that things are not going to be salvageable, or you get to a point, as he said, like a breaking point, where you wonder if this thing is really going to work. But that's when you stop, take a moment, and start having communication about understanding what is causing the issue, what's driving it, where is it coming from? Is it because of something that's going on within me individually, or is it something between the two of us collectively that's causing the problem?
Right. And it's the challenges that came along with that. We're still walking through how do we be the couple that we believe we can be?
Yeah.
At the same time, we have a life that's dependent upon us. Like we have to do the things that are needed, for our son and for him to prosper, grow, move forward. And we're having troubles with identifying how we do that as parents, as a couple.
Yeah.
And so we went through our seasons of like disconnection where, it was like, hey, we're seeking other people to fill the void of being able to, have those kind of conversations.
I'm sorry, you're seeking other people, like y'all stepping out?
Well, let me put it this way. So we did go through infidelity in our marriage.
Both of y'all?
No, but
you did? It's normally the man, isn't it? Is it normally, or no? Okay, if he the women on the low.
Something else he mentioned there where he said that, they were raising their child and they're trying to figure out who they are in the relationship and how they're going to be together, and also recognizing the responsibility they now have for raising this child. And I can imagine the struggle that creates when you come into a space and you've never been married before, have no idea what you're getting yourself into, and trying to navigate those turbulent, sometimes waters. It can be quite a challenge. And when we get frustrated with the way things are, do we have a tendency of keeping that inside, bottling it up, and then allowing ourselves to seek attention, validation, what have you, from other people to help fill that void that we think is that, well, that's how we should say we think, the void that appears to be in front of us and not getting that we're not receiving from our partner? Rather than having a conversation to discuss what's happening, how you're feeling, and making sure that there are no shortcomings. One thing that me and my girlfriend do, we do check-ins periodically. I call them barometer checks. She calls them check-ins, but it's more so just to find out, just kind of say, hey, just making sure that I'm still meeting your needs. There's nowhere I'm lacking. There's no issue that you feel like needs to be addressed. Is there any area that you feel like we're falling short in that we can work on together? And really stressing the importance of communication so that you can avoid some of these pitfalls. I can't tell you how great it feels to have these conversations with her, knowing that she's not quick to judge. She's at least going to hear me out and try to understand what my perspective, and I do the same in return for her.
So during that time, like, I think an important point for me in that time is, like, I was so disconnected that for me, it wasn't like, oh, I'm this great person or whatever. I wasn't a great person. I was out flirting around with other women and what have you, but that wasn't who I wanted to be. It's just, we were so disconnected in our relationship that we had lost who we were and who we were supposed to be.
And I can speak from experience with that. During my first marriage, my wife and I had become severely disconnected. And to the point that, like he said, I didn't want to be out there seeking validation elsewhere. But I felt, as a human being, I felt forced to, because I was lacking in that connectivity so much, and I didn't understand the importance of communication. I didn't understand the importance of trying to nurture the connection in a way that would make sure it wouldn't break. I was immature in respect to knowing all that I was getting myself involved in. And because of that, mistakes were made on both sides to the detriment of the relationship.
Did you find out, or did you tell him?
I told him.
You told him. Why'd you tell him?
I said the biggest thing for me is I didn't want to be like my father, and I realized that I had become my father.
Wow.
And that was really devastating to me, to know that I caused the same pain that I hated him for doing to my mom.
Oh, gosh.
And I realized there was a lot of unforgiveness, a lot of unresolved issues because of the physical, verbal abuse that I experienced as a child, and then the sexual abuse that I experienced as a child. And all of those things had come to a head, and I was like, this is not who I want to be.
So right there, she talks about how past traumas and the way her father treated her had caused her to become someone she was not happy with becoming. She never wanted to be this person, but she felt herself sliding into that mindset. And she said herself, she was dealing with unresolved issues. This is why we push therapy so much on this channel, because that's just how important it is. If you don't start dealing with those unresolved issues, they will come back up to haunt you. You have to become self-aware. You have to want to change. You want to be better. And then you have to be open and honest with yourself and sit down and listen and have somebody break down what's really causing the issues. Where is the insecurity coming from? What's your fears coming from? Why are you reacting to these situations the way you reacted to them? And realizing that this is something that happened to you a long time ago. Something could have come in and some kind of traumatic event could have caused this. And once you start to address that, the clouds that you feel, the dark clouds you feel hovers over your head starts to clear up.
What was it like leading up to that, having that conversation?
Panic, fear. Like, my life is over. I have ruined the best thing that ever happened to me, which is my husband being my best friend. That was one of the things that stood out to me about him, is he was different than any other man that I had dated. You know, I know that we were young when we got married, but I had dated before, and he was so different from anybody else. And it just like, it broke me inside to know that here's the best thing that ever happened to me, and I ruined it. I really am not good enough. I haven't earned the right to be with somebody as good as him.
And that's something that people often feel when it comes to self-sabotage when in relationships. I know for a long time I felt the same way. You know, you just feel like that because you've made mistakes in past relationships and things didn't go well, or you had bad experiences in the past, your self-esteem becomes so low, or you see yourself in a certain way that you don't feel worthy of love. And because you don't feel worthy of love, that governs your decisions. You start speaking negatively over yourself, over things you're dealing with, over relationships, because you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop when in reality you are manifesting that very negative behavior. You're manifesting that result rather than just understanding and appreciating the fact that you've always been enough. You always will be enough. No, you're not perfect. None of us are, right? But we're always evolving. We're always learning. We're always getting better. That's the whole point of this journey. Your job, your mission is to make sure you understand what you need and what you want. What are your boundaries, so that when you come into a relationship, you can communicate them effectively and making sure that the other person understands, and hopefully they can do the same in return. That way there's no confusion once you guys start to grow together.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing that most people would be like, nah, that's not true. It is true. I knew beforehand.
Really?
Yeah, you do. You know. But because I was so disconnected, I was able to put that thing on the back burner, like whatever.
How did you know?
When you're a couple and your life together and your intimacy together, you know when that's not right. My wife traveled for business, and so I'm not saying that everybody who travels for business is stepping out. That's not what I'm saying. But I understood that the things I knew I wasn't meeting certain needs in her life. And so for me, I'm like, how are those needs getting met?
And see, right there, that's a good point he's making. Because let's be honest, we do know, right? If you understand and you've been around somebody long enough, you can feel when the temperature shifts in the room. I like the part when he said he was aware enough to know that he wasn't meeting her needs. So his first question to himself was, if I'm not meeting them, who is meeting them? But just him saying that he was self-aware enough to recognize that he was falling up short, and he figured that she's probably doing the same thing, but he put it to the back of his mind because that's pride and ego right there getting in the way of it. But the fact that he was aware of it and caught it speaks volumes to his ability to be self-aware, which a lot of us are not when it comes to relationships. We tend to just put on blinders and go forward and try to ignore all the warning signs and then complain when things go sideways because how could this possibly happen? If you were paying attention, you might have saw something before it hit the fan.
Wow.
And so, I just, really started to contemplate those things, and I knew, I was like, there is someone else. But I never confronted her about that. So when she came to me and she told me, that brought like a certain level, obviously anger came out in those moments. But that brought the challenge to me of, now I have to contend with this thing. It's one thing when you think you know something, but you can just backburner that thing in your head. Yeah. It's another thing when it's right in front of you. Now you have to deal with it. You got to really confront it now. But I'm grateful, having to confront it, as Sabrina was saying, that forced me to deal with things inside of me. And that's what needed to happen.
Recognizing that whatever's happening with her, partially, not entirely, but partially falls on what's happening inside him. Because whatever he's dealing with, he's contributing to the disconnect. Again, not solely, but he is contributing to it. And him recognizing that he plays a factor in the demise of the relationship is important.
Well, to be clear too, there are two people in a relationship.
Yeah.
And when somebody cheats in that relationship, there are people who are just not good people, right? Yeah. And so they make terrible decisions, and they will continue to do that probably forever. But then there are people who make a mistake. And usually when that mistake happens, something is at the center of that thing. So, no, I can't be responsible for the decisions that Sabrina made. I got to be responsible for the decisions that I made. And I have to take ownership of the fact that my decisions have an influence on her decisions. That's the part I have to own. And so, and I can't own, her decision to be with another person and to cheat, have an affair. I don't get to own those things. Those are Sabrina's to own. What I have to own is, what are some of the things that I did during that time that had a really negative impact on our relationship? What are the things that drove wedges between Sabrina and myself? What are the things that made Sabrina feel like she couldn't come to me for the things that she needed? I gotta own those things. I can't ask her to own that.
That's one thing I try to stress with people, is that you cannot sit here and tell me everything happened to me. I didn't do anything. I was a perfect person. I was always great in a relationship. No, sir, ma'am, let's have a conversation, because I can tell you right now, that's not true. There was some place in there you came up short. You thought you weren't coming up short, but you did, and you didn't bother to find out from the other person whether or not you were coming up short, and here you are today. Trying to push the blame on the other person is a classic defense mechanism that we do. I've done it, and it takes a great deal of strength and courage to take ownership of your mistakes. Own the fact that you did something wrong. Yes, I didn't do that right. I didn't give you the attention you needed. I wasn't there for you. I was distant. All those things. Once you understand that, you'll be able to deal with the reality that you play a factor. A relationship has two people involved, not just one. So one person can't stand by and say, I didn't do anything, I'm standing on the sidelines. Because if that's what you're going to do, then right there is the reason why you don't have the relationship. So that was a very good conversation. And I like how we had an opportunity to understand and see how the inner workings of their relationship ebbed and flowed while they tried to work through this problem. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments if you ever had an experience where you dealt with infidelity in a relationship. Were you able to address it and then overcome it? Or was it a situation where you had to go ahead and cut things loose and move on with your life? If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. And if this is the kind of content you're into, check out the videos on the screen, and I'll see you over there.